Good day, Tamers. Bandai has yet again announced a beautiful bans and limited list. Now, they always say bans limited list, but are we going to get some new bans? We're discussing some cards that people are annoyed about, or upset about, or don't like seeing. So this is down to you and me, and the majority of the internet, to discuss what are we getting rid of in this ban list / limiting list. Now, let's just start off something super quick. A lot of people hate HPD, Hidden Potential Discovered, as it makes green decks super powerful. Guess what? It really doesn't. Play green and you'll see why. So, unfortunately, green has the issue of things cost nothing to go up to very early, but cost a lot to go into very late. The reason why HPD is here is because it's going to offset that situation. The biggest problem was, HPD has been limited to 1 for a very long time, and they haven't really considered why HPD was needed. That is because green Digivolutions cost a lot to Digivolve into at the Mega level, or going into your level 7, which there's not many for green looking at you. Chaos. I have no issue if they want to remove this from the game. The only issue I do have truly though is the fact that they need to look at the costings of a lot of green level 6s. It's one of the only colours that has to have majority 5 cost megas because they think HPD is the issue. If you literally go, this comes in place on the day of BT14 and you bring in some good green megas that cost 3 or 4, no one's going to notice. The reason why Bloomlord's so good and doesn't really need to have a HPD in its deck is because it essentially goes, hey look, everything's suspended, I'm getting some memory, don't worry about it. It now costs 2. Isn't too bad. X-Antibody, this is obviously an issue, especially in the upcoming formats where Bandai wants to have more Tamers on the board. And I understand that having a free Digimon just randomly appear on the board and go, no, it's not time for you yet. With Hunters coming out soon, this is one of those very few cards that kind of had a way in to be a bit of a devious card if it had a chance to be played, as Hunters is a very destructive deck as it is. Defex is currently being removed from the pool of cards to play from the Ultimate Cups. And I think they're going to test the waters a little bit, see how it goes. I do think this might get limited to 1, if not removed totally. Is it too powerful? Not necessarily. You do have to kind of think around how you play your cards. I think that's the issue with a lot of people. They just go, I'm going to throw 15 Tamers on the field. And they go, oh no, Defex turned up. How could I ever think about this? Deck building. This is where you have to think about your deck building skills. Oh boy, the coolest boy we know. Is he getting limited? I think a lot of people want him to go to 1 at least. But I think a lot of people want him banned because he's very good. And a lot of people do say, if you're going to limit something, just ban it because there's no point having it at 1. Coolboy, on the other hand, would become just a very generically good, cheap searcher, which for 1 isn't terrible, and having 1 in your deck isn't awful. At the same time, though, he does make these X-Antibody decks a lot more consistent and a lot more painful to deal with, because for a low cost of 2, you're going to get fined a minimum, hopefully, of 1 X-Antibody card, be it the option card or be it one of your X-Antibody Digimon. And then the following turn, let's just say, for instance, you had a Greymon on the field, you found Greymon X-Antibody, and then Digivolved up into it, you'd then get a return of a draw for Digivolving, gain a memory, and you'd gain a draw. So your wonderful costing card here now only costs you 1. Very, very potent. And this is really annoying, especially if you have 4 on the field and you just gain 4 memory and get 4 draws per turn. Very good card, very powerful. X-Antibody option card. A lot of people do get annoyed with this card. It's not exactly game breaking, besides the 1 card that's also on this list. But to be fair, that is a very specific case. Can't be trashed for this Digimon distribution cards. This is obviously pretty good into certain decks, but obviously very annoying from the prospect of decks that want to stunlock you. Boo-hoo. But no, I think X-Antibody isn't necessarily a problem. I think it just has 1 very good deck that just gets to abuse it more often than any of the other cards do in this poll. Greymon X-Antibody is the problem card when it comes to the X-Antibody. With this Digimon with Greymon or Omnimon in its name would be deleted or returned to the hand or deck by an effect, replacing 1 X-Antibody card from this Digimon's Digivolution cards at the bottom of its owner's deck. Prevent the Digimon from leaving play. Very potent card, very amazingly potent card. Having the option to not be removed as an Omnimon and be returned to hand or deck or deleted by removing just one X-Antibody is very potent. Especially when you think this is normally in tangent with the Alteris mode that gives the same effect vaguely. That was essentially gives you more sources to play with. Having to continually try to remove, break, stop a Digimon from being removed from the field is very annoying and very hard to deal with. Especially if it's the only way you can get rid of it is by hopefully crashing into security. It's a security option or a bigger Digimon, and then when a lot of these Digimon get to be like 19, 20k, that's not happening on the second part. Metal X Grey Boy over here. Not necessarily too much of a broken card. It's very potent, it's very powerful. I do think it's got something very similar with the WhereGarurumon issue, where can't be digivolved, can't be affected by your opponent's effect. Now it's DP reduced. Then once an opponent's turn was returned, when a Digimon becomes suspended, if this Digimon has Greymon or I'm going to want its name, trash the top card of your opponent's security stack. Essentially, you're stopping your opponent from interacting with you, which is very, very bad for gameplay mechanics. And then punishing your opponent for trying to play the game by them just unsuspending during their unsuspend phase, popping a card. Personally speaking, the card is very powerful. I do think maybe limiting it to one to make sure that people don't get to just go, oh, I found 4 of these in my deck, I now get to abuse the ability of never having to worry about hitting your security or whatever you can do to me, especially when this is teamed up with Yuya, which stops you from having your opponent play option cards against your Greymons. Cerberus, a whale mode over here, is used currently in a loop deck. Obviously, we all know how they feel about loop decks. They don't like them. Loops are very bad because it breaks game mechanics. And this can be seen to go to 0, as they're already having it 0 during the monocolored, within brackets, event that we're having for the Ultimate Cup for the next 2 Ultimate Cups. I do think that the reasoning for what they're doing is to try and see what the issue cards are, and if they essentially do stop those decks from performing particularly well. Cerberus Whale mode, though, is specifically just for that deck, and as we've seen with things like Lilith, they didn't like Mega Digimon Fusion, it's going to be the issue. There's a good chance that Cerberus will be getting nuked off the board. Unfortunately, that is the way it is. Card is old, and it is only in this one deck. I think that's going to be why they go like, no, we don't want you playing this. We want you playing, X Hearts. We don't want you playing with old cards because we would have to think about them or have to reprint them. Although they just did get a reprint, I think, in the last set. WhereGarurumon promo. A lot of people are complaining that this is not the problem card, and that's because people can't really think for themselves. The reason why this is the problem card, gentlemen and ladies, and tamers in general, is because when you digivolve into the WhereGarurumon X Digimon, you gain the security attack +1 if you've got the 8 cards in your hand. There's no other way until we had the X-Antibody option card to do that. And that's where the problem comes from. It's not necessarily this on its own. It's not necessarily WhereGarurumon X, and it's not necessarily the X-Antibody option card. But the 3 of them together make a very potent combo. If you swing for the first time and don't have to lose a source, fantastic. If you swing again for the second time, digivolve into Where X and get 2 hits in and don't have to lose any sources, you're laughing. You swing for 2 more with the WhereGarurumon X, you'd have to lose 2 sources, and then you digivolve up into MetalGreymon. Cost you probably 2, because you probably have 8 or more cards in hand, maybe even just 1. You digivolve into X-Antibody, you got to spend, you can now swing for game. And that is the issue that a lot of people go like, oh, this deck's dead. No. You have to understand it's a combo. It's a combo of climbing your ladder. And that's why the issue is the promo card. Now, they did remove the WhereGarurumon X, thinking that is the main problem, and to be fair, you can still do the combo the same way. It just takes a little bit more time. And so how this happens is you swing with this first, you then digivolve up into Sagittarius mode. Sagittarius mode, you swing out with jamming now. You have to worry about hitting anything bigger than you. You're hitting for 2. Go up into MetalGreymon. Reduce the cost by however many. Spend 1 to go into Metal X, and then if you've got the memory, which you might do, it's blue deck, it's a good chance you got a memory boost out there. If you've just got memory because it's the type of deck it is. Go into Bonds, you get 2 swings. First swing, you win the last couple of hits. Second swing, you swing for the game. Now, is it as effective as you've won? No. Is it still an OTK deck? I think with 5 memory, it's an OTK deck. It's very good, it's very potent, it's very powerful, and it will knock your socks off. More ways than one to skin a cat, or in this case, a Garurumon. WhereGarurumon. This card I think is just annoying for Bandai because obviously they keep looking at deck profiles for green decks and what they can do for things, and they kind of want Bloom Lord to be the big green deck currently, and kind of Hunters next set because it's obviously a mix of colours. That's very annoying for them because obviously a lot of people are going, oh, we're playing WhereGarurumon because it's a really simple game design where you just pop all your sources and swing twice and win the game. And that's essentially what the game plan is for Grandis, which makes a lot of sense. So a lot of people are very wondering what's going to happen with this, especially because they're limited it to 1 during this tournament. So basically, that deck doesn't work now, so you're having to play Bloomlord. Bloomlord's fantastic in this meta either way. And then people are also looking at the Ukurwamon promo, which is the all turns when this Digimon becomes suspended, you lose 1 of your memory until the end of its next turn. It also gives piercing to Insectoid type Digimon. This is also a fairly good card. It's also very annoying, and you don't get much choice, so everything gets to have the minus memory. So you can't even memory block it. So it's really annoying for your opponents to deal with, because 9 times out of 10, your opponent's just going to suspend 1 of your Digimon, swing for game, or swing through you, and gain some memory, so have to worry about things. Or if they can't swing for game, they get you down to 0, they'll then swing with a unsuspended Mimi with a hybrid on top of you, and swing for game that way. It happens occasionally. WhereGarurumon promo PO26. This particularly is something that people have been complaining about because they don't like the idea of having an OTK deck that just gets to be cheeky and suspend itself and swing again, unsuspend and swing again, unsuspend and swing again. There's nothing wrong with this card specifically. It's a very good card in its own right, but in itself, it's not amazing. It has to be able to not die to security. Now, there is a version of this where we used to play back, I think in like BT5 or BT4 it was, where there is like a jamming version of this deck. Now, obviously, because you get extra sources, you can essentially have jamming with +1 security a little bit easier. I don't think you'll ever run that version of the deck because I don't think people care about that version of the deck very much. But you can essentially swing for 5 and then go into Galmon and then swing for game. Now, is this card really a problem? Specifically, not really, as it doesn't really have a massive great time into a lot of decks. It's just very cheeky and can get some wins by blindsiding people. Or obviously, though, it can just crash into security and die. It's not very chunky, which is one of the things that people can't really do during this current Ultimate Cup format, because it doesn't have access to the red bases. The red bases are what give it the extra DP. Again, you can run the Toy Agumon into the Greymon, into the MetalGreymon, swing for 2 with reboot and jamming, drop 2 sources to get to restand, swing again, drop 2 sources, swing again. If you survive, go into Galmon, swing for game. It's a fairly good deck if you get to do it right. WhereGarurumon X-Antibody. This is the card that obviously everyone hates because it's so powerful. It is fairly powerful. I'm not going to say it's not, but at the same time, if you don't have the WhereGarurumon promo with the security attack +1, you also can't do the swinging extra turns. Or, for instance, you can't swing 4 times with the 1 card and suspending itself. There is another security attack +1 WhereGarurumon, which is funny enough. That card sees no play at all, because I think it's very awkward to play that card. It just seems to be that in conjunction, these 2 cards are very powerful, so you have to pick, do you want to get rid of the X-Antibody, or do you want to get rid of the WhereGarurumon? That is down to them personally. I think the pro is more the issue, so that way you're not losing out on the X-Antibody line. But if you guys prefer to get rid of the X-Antibody line, you can do that, but then you've got a very awkward space for WhereGarurumon having an X-Antibody to digivolve into, which then makes it even weaker into the Black and War Greymon X-Antibody lines. Sportsmon, very oppressive card, very good though. It does cost a lot to digivolve into, but you can digivolve from a level 5, and that's the issue for a lot of people, the fact that you can get this on board very early, or let your opponent get stuff on board. Because stuff is on board, obviously the issue there is having to deal with the fact that you've now got a looming source that just goes, everything gets suspended, you'll never unsuspend, and that's very awkward for people to deal with. It is a level 7 with a 16 play cost, and having to get it out in the first place is the most awkward part. Now, it wasn't in the last couple of tops for Japan, which obviously the only place we currently have records of this, because we don't get this now till I think the end of April. So the issue for us now is obviously, is this going to be a good card we have to deal with, or is it just too oppressive to deal with anymore? People also complain about Digimon X-Antibody because it's such an amazingly good card. Don't get me wrong, the card is very good, it's very strong. Digivolve at 1 from Digimon, and then when digivolving, if the Digimon is Digimon or X-Antibody in its Digivolution cards, everything cards in your trash the top card of your opponent's security. Stack. Now, you might think this is kind of weird. This is essentially what Galakmon from BT10 and Crimson Mode do, except the reason why it's a little bit better is because you control how much trash you have, and there's a very good chance that you have 20 plus trash, which means you're just trashing 2 cards, and then you get to swing and do your own thing. On deletion, you may play a 1 Digimon card with Itmon in its name from the trash without paying its memory cost. If you somehow have this card and you also have access to the BL Star, you have a Nimoi Rush, and that could be the difference between you winning and you losing the game. Is this card too powerful and broken? Not particularly. It is very powerful and it's got very good synergy. It's just not the be-all, end-all of cards that a lot of people think it is. Marcus Damon, though, from BT12, is another issue card, which a lot of people are getting confused and scared with. Is the start of your main phase, if you have a Digimon with MetalGreymon in its name, by paying 1 memory, this Tamer is also treated as a Digimon with 3000 and you cannot Digivolve for the turn. Your turn, when this Tamer becomes suspended, one of your Digimon makes Digivolve into a yellow card with Greymon in its name from your hand without paying its memory cost. So obviously when you swing with this into security, you don't really care too much. You either go up into your Rise or you go into your Shine. I think you could probably go up into Burst mode. I think it stops you from doing that. Because you get to do this, you obviously don't have to worry about Marcus dying. And if you go up into Shine that goes, or when Marcus dies, you can put one from your trash back onto your security. It'll be back next turn if your opponent wants to swing into your security and it has no way of trashing. So this is why, specifically, a lot of people don't like this deck, because if you're playing Bialzi, don't really care too much because you're trashing cards. So you don't have to worry too much about the security itself. Whereas people who are playing decks that don't get to trash, having to deal with the fact that there's constantly just 6 or 7 security because constantly a mark has been put back onto the security stack, which is obviously very, very annoying. And being able to Digivolve your Digimon up from level 4 to level 6 relatively easy, especially if you have 2 of these in the field, makes for very challenging games. Especially when ShineGreymon is always known as like one of those horrible, like, destructive forces that you just need to deal with, and being able to get out very early and very cheaply is very annoying for anyone to deal with. WhereGarurumon Blast Mode, the new one people complain about now. When this card is trashed from your deck, delete one of your opponent's level 3 or lower Digimon. For every 10 cards in your trash, add 1 to the maximum level you can choose with this effect. So essentially, from the first 0 to 10, it's not great. It's worse than the current Blast Mode's effect when trashed. As soon as you hit 10 or more, it starts getting to be as good as or better, which, to be fair, in this deck, there's a good chance you're trashing up to 20 to 30 a game easily, especially if you can put this on top of your deck and you can swing with something and you can make it trigger and say, oh no, there's 30 trash now, I just pop a level 6. You pass to go, okay. And then when Digivolving, suspend this Digimon if you have 20 or more cards in your trash, gain free memory. Yeah, this deck is very good at gaining memory. This trashing is also very easy for this deck because it's literally what Ipmon's been built for the last 3 years, or 2 years for us. And people are obviously concerned that this card's obviously very powerful. It's very easy for it to do what it wants to do. But again, when you have an archetype that's built around about milling and trashing, it's going to do those things. And then we have the new Bialzimon, which is when Digivolving trashed 4 cards from the top of your deck. All turns once per turn when a card is trashed from your deck. For every 10 cards in your trash, gain 1 memory. Your turn once per turn when a card is trashed from your deck. This Digimon gains security attack +1 for the turn. And this is where people are getting very anxious about this deck. It's very easy for this deck to run you over, to unsuspend, to swing again, to blow things up, to have a terrible time, and just making your life miserable. Now, Digimon X-Antibody is probably the best deck, if not the top 2 best decks currently in the Japanese format. We obviously don't share a format with them in terms of like how we play our decks, but there's a good chance that Bialzimon's going to turn up and start slapping some people around. The 3 best decks currently, a lot of people complain that it's not, are Quartzmon, because it's very good at controlling, Bialzimon, it's very good at just winning games, and WhereGarurumon as the mid-range deck, because it can go aggro and it can go control, so he gets to choose how he wants to play. These are our 3 decks currently. People are complaining about ShineGreymon. A lot of people say it's not a very good deck, and that might be the case. It's very annoying, it's very sticky to deal with, which is obviously easy to run you down when your opponent doesn't have to do a lot of work. Japan has just got access to the promo for the WhereGarurumon in legal tournaments, as they didn't before, due to the fact that essentially it was only Central Japan that had access to it, while the rest of Asia did not. With the reprint set coming out not so long ago, they will actually find out if this card is good or bad, which might be the reason why WhereGarurumon X-Antibody was the reason that it got taken down to 0 for us. We will see if that's the case for much longer. That's what it goes. These are roughly the 17 terribly awful cards that we might see getting hit or restricted. Firstly speaking, I don't think any of the Bialzimon stuff is, if they start hitting it too early, you're going to lose people too quick, because it's not it's going to be the 3rd set now where things have been banned or limited before we get access to it. Quartzmon, again, I don't see it's been limited for a little while. Maybe once we get to BT13 and they're like, you know what, we want the raw nuts to start selling, we'll get rid of this. Marcus Damon, this might get hit to 1, to be fair, because it's just so annoying for a lot of people to deal with, as it's just a very good combo piece for the deck itself. But again, this is probably going to come at a later date when people are just fed up with ShineGreymon just never leaving the field. WhereGarurumon X-Antibody, I can see this one actually going, but it all depends if they want the X-Antibody line to thrive a bit longer. If they do, then they'll get rid of the promo instead. Black Wall Grey promo, I don't think it's going to be touched. It seems very strange. Grand Coag, I can see going to 1 because they don't want you playing ran this anymore. They want you to buy the new green decks, which is Hunters, and then the weird green, was it Leopardmon in BT13. So you guys don't really get a good green deck for a while, so I apologize for that. So yeah, Bloomlord it is for you guys. Actually, Bloomlord gets some decent support with Lotusmon stuff. Cerberusmon, I think they might hit this to 1 or just get rid of it because, again, they don't really care for like, old archetypal decks that work. And looping is bad for the game, as they said. It's not a core mechanic they don't like, but it's always interesting. I always like loop decks, so I think they're more interesting that people can figure these things out and actually be good with it. Ukuwa promo, again, it depends if they want to deal with this deck any longer. You can run this in other insectoid decks because it's an insectoid-based source, but at the same time, they might just want to get rid of it because piercing is such a effective thing, but at the same time, there's a lot of insectoids that already have piercing by default. Metal X, I can see it's going to 1, just because it's so oppressive to deal with, as it's very similar, if not worse so, than WhereGarurumon. A lot of people will say, oh, WhereGarurumon, you get this. It's like, you don't care about the extra security attack on WhereGarurumon. If that was the thing you cared for, you weren't playing Alpha correctly. Greymon X-Antibody, again, I can see it's going down to 1, just because it's one of these cards where it's like, stop being uninteractive, and we're not playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Where everything is essentially on a set of send negates and you can't play the game. That's not what you want Digimon to be. X-Antibody, I think, stay at 4 for now. It is a key piece in any X-Antibody deck, as well as it not necessarily being too egregious in its own place. Callboy, they've got more X-Antibody stuff coming out in the next few sets, including, I believe, up to BT14. So they're going to be wanting Callboy to be front and center for that. Once they get past all the X-Antibody stuff and they don't want X-Antibody to be a good deck anymore, they will just remove Callboy and X-Antibody, or they'll put it into 1 each, so that way you can still run the package, but have to deal with it as egregiously as been before. FX, again, it might go to 1, just because it's not a massively crazy card, but the fact that it's very generic, you can put it in any deck you want it to, probably makes this a bit more of a front runner for limiting to 1 than anything else. And then hidden potential discovered, again. If you start making green decks a bit more cost effective, so not just having to hemorrhage memory and then not do anything with it, then I can see this obviously getting removed from the game. Until then, I think this will stay at 1 for a little while longer. That's about it, guys. So yeah, if you guys got any more things you want to talk about, or anything you've got in your head that should get limited or looked at least, or maybe even taken off the list for now, we'll see you soon. Not Tommy. Tommy stays at 1 forever. Peace out, guys. We'll see you soon. Ciao.